Here at the Co-op Bros, we're dedicated to covering the biggest launches of the year. Helldivers 2, Space Marines 2, heck, even Cat Quest 3. These are the marquee titles of 2024 in the world of co-op, and that's where you're gonna find us. So of course, here we are covering LEGO Horizons Adventures. It's what we do. We tell you if a game is for you and your best friends. But sometimes it's hard to know who a game is for, and never before has that been more true with a LEGO game focused on a Sony first-party IP like the Horizon franchise. Lucky for you, dear viewer, we will indeed answer that question, but not before getting into the gritty details, because it's both a simple and a complicated answer.
There!
Nice.
That's where I need to hit it.
Thunderjaw? More like Thunder Gnaw.
Holy shit.
That is one hunt to remember.
LEGO games have a long history of making co-op play as easy as can be, and LEGO Horizon Adventures continues that tradition. Whether you're playing online or locally, one player has to get through the prologue mission, which takes around 15 minutes to complete. You'll then be notified you can now begin co-op play. If you're playing locally, all you have to do is pull out that second controller and follow the prompt on the right corner to jump in. To play online, the host simply invites the other player via the invite friend to co-op play option that brings up the invite menu for your corresponding system. If you're playing online, the guest player doesn't need to complete the prologue, by the way, but do remember that you will need a PlayStation Plus or Nintendo Online subscription to play together. So yeah, it's all pretty simple, but you probably still have a couple lingering questions, like am I tethered to the other player, how does share progression work, and does it support crossplay? I'm glad you asked, my friend. You are tethered to each other as the game doesn't have a split screen option. It's not really an issue though. You'll see an indicator if you get too far away from each other and are instantly teleported to the other player. The game does not support share progression, sadly. Only the host player will retain any progress. And lastly, the game does not support crossplay. That covers everything you need to know to set up co-op, so now let's get into how this game plays.
LEGO Horizon Adventures takes on the gargantuan task of turning an open-world post-apocalyptic action title into a straightforward LEGO experience for kids. To do that, they essentially just cut the story into 4 bite-sized chunks that each have a handful of levels you play through before inevitably finding a gold brick at the end of each journey. The story is delivered in short, fully rendered cutscenes or in these boxed dialogue moments, and yes, it's the same tale as the original game, maybe cutting a few corners, and with that signature LEGO levity and humor we've come to love. Each level has just a tiny bit of platforming, very minor exploration, and a few action sequences to bounce between. Expect each to take you somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes and never, and I mean never, shake up the linear formula. Altogether, the whole adventure is like 8-ish hours. Since most of your gameplay is that combat, we'll cover it first. As you progress, you unlock 4 playable characters that each act a little bit different. Tersa throws bombs while Aaron swings a giant hammer. They'll also introduce different enemies from the series like the Watcher that shoots slow-seeking missiles, or the Crab Walkers that have a shield you have to work around. To help take down these enemies, you'll find character-specific weapon upgrades and non-character-specific gear during levels either in chests, dropped by enemies, or at this merchant dude's treasure pit stop that shows up in every level. The gear gives you abilities like a double jump booster shoe thing that shoots flames out of the bottom of your character. That was weird and random, or an elemental bomb that you can throw, while the weapons augment your character, like allowing Aloy to shoot multiple arrows at once instead of just one. Both the gear and these weapon upgrades are temporary though, and you'll run out of them eventually unless you find another pickup. There is actually some light elemental and environmental stuff to the combat too, like knocking over a large pillar to do some damage, or lighting an enemy on fire using a fire bow. But if the levels are all pretty linear and the combat is where you're going to find most of the meat, is there anything else to LEGO Horizons? Don't most LEGO games have tons of collectibles and a cool hub world? Why yes, they do, and Horizon has its own version of that at Mother's Heart. Customize the look of your character, upgrade your character's combat capabilities, and complete side quests, if you can really even call them that. It's pretty straightforward stuff, like much of this game, so let's get into which parts work and which don't.
So look, as we get into the nitty gritty here, I want to preface our praise for LEGO Horizon by acknowledging that co-op play doesn't go super deep. As Andrew will soon expand on, you're not coordinating a ton or coming up with complementary builds. And sometimes that's okay. We've enjoyed plenty of co-op games where simply experiencing the game together is enough. Thankfully, the combat here is actually pretty fun in co-op. Like in the original Zero Dawn, machines have various weak points you can highlight with your focus, giving both players an incentive to target the same parts. Targeting these parts does more damage, but there's also the added benefit of knocking off a machine's missile launcher and nullifying that attack. As Andrew mentioned, you'll come across various gadgets throughout a mission, like the blast boots or the hot dog cart. Yeah, it's the most random one, but I can't lie, it is also one of the best. Other gadgets are more suited for co-op play, however, like the freeze wave or the gravity bomb. The former freezes enemies in place, while the latter pulls them towards a black hole. These definitely give you some additional opportunities to work as a team, but they can just as easily add to the chaos of combat. More on that in a bit. Where I think the co-op play really shines is in the boss fights. Fighting a singular enemy makes it easier to coordinate attacks, and you don't feel like you're on top of each other as much as when you're fighting multiple enemies. One of the more memorable boss fights was against the Big Thunderjaw. This set piece challenged us to juggle a simple puzzle while contending with enemy waves and of course the big T-Rex himself. That was just the first part of the fight though. The real fight tasks you with targeting his legs so you can knock him down for a brief period, allowing you to deal a bunch of damage. This was actually a really epic fight and made a case why this game could totally work. Sadly, aside from the final boss, none of the other boss fights really play with different mechanics, which is a huge missed opportunity in our eyes. The other pillars of this experience don't shine as much in co-op, but can be enjoyable nonetheless depending on what you're looking for. As big fans of the Horizon franchise, we enjoyed all the quips and nods to the original game, and it was generally fun to experience the story together. While the town building aspect wasn't really our thing, I could also see that being a fun thing to collaborate on. Like I said at the start, co-op play in LEGO Horizon is pretty surface level, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do have some pretty major critiques, so let's dive into those.
Again, I want to echo what Gabe said. The combat here is actually pretty fun, especially for a LEGO game, and they've helped add a little bit of depth to fights by encouraging you to target weak points like you would in the actual Horizon series. But I also need to reiterate what Gabe mentioned about how chaotic the combat can get. Were there times when we coordinated on an enemy, when they were frozen maybe, to take out their weak point? Yeah. But far more often, our abilities were getting in the way of any real coordination thanks to some seriously unnecessary friendly fire. Anytime any of your hits from your weapon or your gear land on your friend, they're gonna get staggered, and even more annoyingly spit out the same bit of dialogue over and over again. This is happening at a near constant rate, like in this clip where we had gravity grenades that have a huge area of effect and consistently sucked up not just our enemies but each other. So while combat is mostly fun and there's potential for coordination, the friendly fire takes away most of that positive part of co-op and the title. You might think that characters being different at least help switch up the gameplay from your partners, but honestly they end up all playing the same. Their weapon either will just have a variation on range or speed from one to the other, nothing groundbreaking, plus their upgrade trees are all identical, like more health or more speed. Not that we really expected it in a LEGO Kids game, but there's nothing resembling any sort of cooperative buildcraft to be found here. Speaking of finding things, one of the best part of previous LEGO games is finding hard to reach collectibles and using character abilities in tandem to solve puzzles. Well, I talked about how linear the levels were earlier, and I really was not joking. Sure, sometimes you go off the main path to grab a chest that has the same currency you use for nearly everything, but that's pretty much a non-factor. You truly are just going from one combat scenario to another with only the occasional light platforming moment to switch things up. And even if some kids like the idea of making every decoration in their town some weird absurd version of a hot dog, you can only take turns decorating. Once one player starts, the other one loses all control and just has to sit there and watch. This is small but no less disappointing. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to find too many positives in the co-op, but we still do think this game is for someone, so stick around a little bit longer to find out who we're talking about.
Now that you've heard both the good and bad sides of this experience, it's time to answer the question we posed at the start of this video. Who is this game for? I think you can tell that this game has a bit of an identity crisis. On the one hand, it totally knocks it out of the park in realizing the world of Horizon in LEGO form. I don't know what engine this game is running on, but it looks amazing, and as fans of the franchise, it's really cool to see iconic enemies like the Thunderjaw fully realized via Legos. But you wouldn't play this game just for the graphics, and and if you've played the original Zero Dawn, it's fair to say you're probably a consistent gamer that's likely a bit older. If that's the case, I'm not sure this game is for you. With a lackluster progression system, no real collectibles in sight, and some really bare-bone level design, there's just not enough here to keep you and your friends engaged even if you're fans of the franchise. For those same reasons, I also wouldn't recommend this for more casual gamers. There's just far better options that even came out this year, like Cat Quest 3. Okay, so this is a kids game then, right? Technically yes, but I'd wager there aren't a lot of kids that are out there putting LEGO Horizon on their Christmas list this year. We played this with my 12-year-old brother and he had a good time with it, don't get me wrong, but he also couldn't care less about the story and has never heard of Horizon. Had I bought this game for his birthday, I know for a fact he and his friends wouldn't play for more than an hour before getting bored. I imagine a lot of kids like him would rather play LEGO Fortnite or some more recognizable IP like LEGO Star Wars. In the end, we think this is a good game for an older person that's a fan of the franchise but wants to play a game with that younger person in their life, be it their child or younger sibling. This way, the Horizon fan can share their love of the franchise and help fill in some of the finer details of the story this rendition skips over. And that younger person will get far more out of the lighthearted tone and all the random LEGO stuff like Ninjago that we didn't care for. Yeah, that's a pretty narrow demographic, but hey, we believe it could really hit that niche. Despite our initial excitement, LEGO Horizon Adventures turned out to be a bit disappointing for us, but that doesn't mean it couldn't land for you. Hopefully we've done our job to help you decide that for yourself.
Well, friends, hope we did our job and helped you figure out if this was for you and your best friends, or in this case, you and your kids. If we did, give us a like, a sub, all that good YouTube stuff. We're closing out the year strong with a few more videos we're sure you don't want to miss. Shout out as always to our patrons for supporting our little two-man team. We'll catch y'all on another episode of the Co-op Bros.
Wish I could wear that Halo hair. What if I do this, but then...
There you go. Hey, wait a second.
I'm the real Aloy.
It's me, Aloy.